Come back. It'll come back.
Welcome everybody to the Boomer Talk podcast. My name is Jordan. You might know me as One Up Analytics. My co-host is Taylor, aka Somebody's Gun, and our guest today is a professional Fortnite player, a coach for pro guides,
That's right.
um, YouTuber, streamer,
hmm
SamppA. Thanks for joining the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Good to be a boomer.
Oh yeah,
A rarity in this
hmm
community.
That's
Um,
right.
all right. Well, I'll go ahead and get us started here
Let's do
today.
it.
And I don't necessarily so I want to talk more about the POIs and how a drop spot matters than necessarily the beef, because that's kind of died down. Bizzle is not contesting Zayd anymore. And
Yeah,
that
that's
whole
unfortunate,
thing.
actually.
Yeah, we'll get more. I'm
Yeah.
sure, as FNCS goes on, we'll get more.
We will get more. It's true.
But
No, we will.
what are your thoughts on drop spot beef, and then more importantly, the two major POIs this season? SamppA.
For sure. I would definitely say Dropspot Beef is just funny. From the outside, from the inside, it's all annoying because obviously you're just griefing each other for the most part. Unless you're winning, and then it's not even really beef for the most part. It's just somebody getting wrecked. But um, it it's just one of those things. It's Fortnite. Fortnite is unique in that way. It's the only game where you go and what you do matters more than necessarily how good you are at the game. Because obviously, it's part of it. Being good at the game, knowing what to do, when to do it, and where to go. What loot's better, right? But in other games, you have the same loot. You have everything's the same. So that's the one thing that's different about Fortnite is that it's not as balanced necessarily per se. But what makes it kind of balanced is how much it gets contested in a way. But yeah, so I mean, it's just a Fortnite thing. It's just the only thing that Fortnite has. Fortnite's the only place that really has griefing contests. Like there are other griefing contests, but it's not like this way. People don't play scrims for 3 hours a day because they just keep griefing each other off spawn, and a third party comes in and finishes them off. Maybe I'm not really sure entirely what goes on in every scrim, but so as far as Dropspot Beef, super specific to Fortnite. There's other beef in other games, but that's Dropspot Beef is so interesting. And then as far as Stark and what was the other one?
Dooms.
Yeah, Dooms. I mean, it's insane that you can show up and roll out with the best guns in less than 2 minutes. I mean, except for Dooms actually takes a little bit more skill, I think, than Stark. Stark is ridiculous. The fact that you can land on a gun instantly, I think it's ridiculous, and it's super ping based. It's frustrating because when you want to pop off in a cash cup, I go to Stark, and it just sometimes it's like, oh, Iron Man killed me. Oh, three people landed on the same chest as me. Oh, I just got pickaxed because I literally couldn't move away from their bodies as they all ran for the chest. So I wouldn't say I love the idea of these great, amazing POIs, but I think the one thing that's overshadowed is that everyone says these drops are OP and really strong, but they lack in other things that other drops have a lot of. I mean, Coral Castle is actually, I think, kind of underrated. I went there and I felt like I got a lot of loot, but it kind of helped that I got what's it called, Shark uncontested. That was a cash cut, but so I mean, what I'm saying here is that as much as Stark and Dooms are OP and they're really really strong, I think that there are other ways to get as strong as going to Stark and Dooms, so it makes it balanced. The only thing I think really is the mythic, the Doom bomb. That's kind of because everything else you can upgrade to. You can find
Right.
Stark somewhere. So it's not completely imbalanced. I think the only thing is the mythic, and that mythic, it's like the only one in the game, pretty much, right?
Yeah,
What else
at
is
this
there?
point, now you just have the two different. You have the Doom gauntlets and the Doom bomb, and that's
What
it.
what happened to the surfer and the group ball? I actually like those a lot. I'm kind of sad they're gone.
Welcome.
We
to
have no idea.
Fortnite.
Yeah, okay, that's awesome. Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the only mythic in the game right now. So obviously, it's gonna feel a little bit more impactful because it's the only one you can take height with it. It's the only RPG in the game, basically. You look at it that way, right?
Yeah, and
Pretty
it's
much.
unlimited ammo too.
Unlimited ammo, and it also does 10 damage a tick on low ground. So if you're on low ground below Dooms and it's the final circle, don't worry, you will be burning from the ground and the wood next to you and the storm. It feels good, trust me. You ever run in storm while the ground is burning? You die so. It's not even funny. 20 health per tick. I think it is 10 health per ground burn, but I'm not sure. And combined with the storm, that's another 10. You're dead so fast. Anyway,
Gotcha. All right. So you covered a lot there.
I did, yeah.
I'm gonna go back to the beginning, and you talking about how Dropspot Beef was unique. I think Dropspots in general and how important the early game is so unique to Fortnite because I don't
Yeah.
think we see anything like that where
You have to like claw.
yeah, well, and you can condition a drop spot, right? So
Yeah.
what I think about is what was it? The minigun chap went there, Aqua
Yeah.
and
Like 3 big
Stompy went
teams.
there.
Yeah.
What was that called? What was that place called?
Grotto.
Grotto.
Yeah.
Boom.
I wanted to
There
say
we
the
go.
skull for a second. I don't know why. But...
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was the skull on the side of the mountain. So we saw that in two different regions, right? In EU, Stompy and Aqua conditioned the entire region to not show up there, and they essentially won the tournament because they had the best loot in the game for free. And when you heard that minigun on high ground, you're like, oh, fuck no, I'm playing for second. Like that's how this game's going. But then we saw in NA how like 3 teams contested it and none of them really did that well, at least during like a grand finals and a consistent you're playing against the same people. And that's what we're going to see during this FNCS, because for the first time we have, I guess not the first time, but we have a 2-day final, right? So things can change from day to day, and that I in my opinion should play a huge part in how these POIs play out. Because let's say Zayt, Saf, and Stretch have an amazing day one on week 1. They win 3 out of 6 games, which is absolutely unheard of in a finals, right? And then we go into day 2. And the smart teams, they're going to try and figure out, okay, how the heck do we stop these guys? And is it going to be off spawn? Is it going to be in a mid-game fight? Or are we just essentially going to let them win this tournament?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the questions that every team is going to have to ask themselves if these POIs start taking over.
Yeah. I mean, you remember MMB, right?
Yeah.
That was actually one of the, like, it's underrated and isn't talked about much, but that is one of the most, like, interesting turnaround events that we have seen in a long time, because a team broke down the drop, understood the meta of mechs, and abused that team so much. Like, they came in with the mech one game by randomly dropping on it and then pushed them, and then the next game they baited them to look at the mech and spray them, and they sniped one and pushed and killed the other 2 with the mech. It was insane because they had to have done it through careful planning to some degree. I don't remember who it was. I literally don't remember who the players were, but the plan was so good that they brought down the best team in the entire event. I remember they didn't even place like top 20, right? Or something ridiculous. It was a while ago, so I forget, but they did not do as well as they were said to be. And they were very good. They deserved to be that good, but they just got dismantled because of good planning. It was insane to see.
I want to say that was Freemock and like... No, I don't remember.
It's so long ago that I just totally forget, but it was insane.
Yeah.
Because they had it just, like you said, conditioned.
Yeah. Well, and even in NA, we had, until they split up, Tfue 72 hours and Cloak were landing outside on the asteroid in those like little factories underneath, then would go third party retail
every time
and clean it up. And we saw there are strategies, but the question is does this map have strategies to take down those 2 POIs? Because I don't think there's necessarily something to counter Doom's bomb at this point.
No.
And
other than a good fight, but
true. And a fairly quick one, because time's really the only downside of the bomb.
Yeah, time bomb.
All right. Anyway, so all right, if you're picking perfect world, right? You get to choose either Dooms or Stark. You have it uncon. For opens, what are you picking? And then for finals, what are you picking?
I feel like just uncon period. I would love Starks. Dooms, I don't know how to play it. I genuinely don't. I mean, I know I said it's just an RPG, but it does take at least some use of it in some scrims. Like, I'm sure there's tons of, like, have you ever tried to throw the Doom's bomb? I don't, like, it's awkward. Sometimes I hit myself. Like, you don't do damage to yourself, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm definitely not going to touch anything. And I throw it. I'm like, oh, it just hit me. Like, I don't. So, I think I'd probably go with Starks for sure, just because I don't know anything about Dooms in terms of how to, like, really abuse it. I don't think it takes a lot of skill to abuse it, but rather just, like, to win games, I think you do have to use it at the right time. and not focus the wrong people. Because if you use it, there's 20 seconds of opening of really good teams of being like, they used it, we could do something maybe, you know? So I would say I would much prefer Starks just because I know it better. But also just having golden pumps off spawn is insane. So I think definitely Starks also because of the rifts, which actually Dooms can easily get to rifts as well. But I feel like for the most part, the Stark rifts are pretty uncontested because nobody wants to run to a rift, get stopped halfway by a Stark car, and then 3 guys jump out with pumps. Like, you know, so
Yeah.
both are good. I definitely would say I would prefer Starks though. I feel like it does feel like a better POI. Pleasant isn't bad. It's definitely really good. I think that's the answer. I think it's just how my feeling is. I was gonna go more into explaining like what I feel, but I think that's just how I feel. Just I prefer Starks. I think it's probably more fun. It's more interesting. I like the Stark guns. Don't really care for mythics. I guess maybe I'm just bored of mythics or something. I don't know.
So that's both opens and finals.
Yeah,
You're preferring
absolutely.
Starks.
100%.
Okay.
Well, okay, if you want to talk about like for a separate team that isn't just me, right? Definitely if it was uncon finals, Dooms, because then you can have that amazing loot and the bomb. So for sure. I think Starks is more fun for me personally, but I think Dooms is probably a better one if you're talking about uncon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. I prefer Starks 100% and it opens for we're talking high level Fortnite, you know, the best teams that are going to actually be able to take advantage of getting the pumps, the purple or gold Stark rifles, right?
Like we saw with
me myself,
Nitro.
I could have the best loot in the game and I'll get shit on. But SamppA, you know, you're one of the players that can actually take advantage of getting solid loot, right?
Maybe, yeah.
And it's knowing what to do with it, because when you walk out of a POI with either a purple or gold AR and a purple or gold shotgun, you know you have better loot than literally everyone else in the game.
Especially how long it takes to get it, yeah.
Yeah, and that advantage can be used so well by teams to go ahead and take over and pop off when they get those, that I think it's a lot different than we've seen mythic POIs in the past, because of how not evenly, but how each player can get such good loot. They're not necessarily getting a mythic, but they're all getting some amazing weapons that then they could use more effectively as a trio. Yeah, so that's how I see it.
Right.
And Doom's absolute. I'm worried that we're going to be walking into Caddy round 2 with Dooms in grand finals. It's not as awesome in open lobbies because, you know, when you're not stacked up on people, it's really, I don't see it as good in opens when we're not getting stacked lobbies. But when there's 50 people in 3rd, 4th zone and you throw that bomb, that could affect 4+ trios.
Yeah.
And even if you just get a couple of tags with the bomb itself or the fire afterwards, like Storm Surge plays a huge effect. So that's another tick for Dooms. And then if you're picking up the gauntlets, it's essentially fall damage free. So you could sit up and play this like dual height layer.
Yeah, that's the thing I didn't really talk about too much. Yeah.
And Bizzle, Dubs, and Mega were doing it, where Mega would sit like 8 stories above everyone else, and he had the gauntlets, and all he had to do was press the space bar. If he gets shot out and he's chilling, he just drops down onto the other guy's layers. So
yeah, it's insane.
We'll see how that plays out. I'm hoping that no one gets these spots uncontested, because
probably not.
Yeah,
probably not.
Zayt and Saf and Stretch probably have Dooms to themselves, and that's scary to me.
Well, we got Hart as well. Some people haven't talked about it. I forget who Hart's trio is, but
Durant and
wasn't that his old? I don't know. I'm not sure, but either way, they're going there, and I think they'll hold their own. Honestly, I really do. I think now that Hart said 0 ping, he's been grinding for like 3 or 4 months. I think he's like, I don't know if anyone remembers, but Hart was like one of the first few players to like get in the scene as a professional player. Like he was big on E11, and then obviously like there was other things that came, and maybe he fell off a little bit, but like I still think he was still good. But like he's been working hard recently. Like he's on 0 ping right now. I could see them holding their own against Zayt, and plus they have a lot of Twitter beef going on right now. That you guys talked about Bizzle and Zayt, but man, my favorite one was Hart's most recent video where they were like talking trash Zay was talking trash to them, and then they did well in one of the cups. I don't remember what cup it was, but it was just so interesting because it was very well done. Like the video was edited so that they watched Stretch run away with the vault card last. It was good. It was good. So I'm excited to see them. I think they'll be a contester for sure.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to see that because I think we can get a very well, for me is like a pure spectator list. The storylines that come out of, week to week, who's winning what POI, who's going where, those are some of the most interesting pieces. And I don't think just simply for me, I think for the community at a large really enjoys that kind of, not drama, but excitement within the early part of the game that's not just necessarily end game over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. No, like one of the questions I had was like, do you think there's anything that Epic could do to encourage early game, like not necessarily beef, but like early game engagements? Because right now, taking early game engagement is basically griefing both teams.
Yeah.
Like, is there anything they could do to make that not the case, where it's still a viable strategy to contest somebody, especially like a mythic POI where you don't want, like Taylor said, a specific trio conditioning other players to like stay the fuck away from their POI, especially when they're coming out of it with the best loot in the game. Like, is there anything they could do to make that more viable?
Realistically, as far as if you look at how the game is played, what would you do? Would you give them more shields so that they have more lively fights? Not necessarily, because they would just run with an end game and they would just tank tags. I think it's just the way the game is played. People need to get to end game, and they have, I don't know, like, I don't remember every single stage of Fortnite, but I do feel like maybe at certain points on the old map, I felt like I had a lot of loot, even coming from like Dusty Depot and stuff, I used to main Dusty Depot, and I feel like that had like 4 chests or 5 chests, and that worked for me back then. And I mean, you could still make 5 chests work now. Obviously, 50%, that's stupid, but but I remember back then we had so many heals, and I don't remember it being more aggressive. I think it's just, that people are always going to go for endgame, and there's not really a healthy way to encourage fighting outside of just giving people a stupid amount of heals so that they feel more inclined. I don't know if there is one, honestly. Like, I'm not really sure how to stop that, because it comes down to the loot pretty much. So is there another way to ask that question per se? Because I mean, like, what would be your thoughts on trying to change the outcome? Like, maybe spitball. Maybe I can think of something off that.
I don't know. Well, Reese just put in chat making eliminations worth more points in the.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be awesome. Actually, that's actually a very good idea. Yeah, that would literally give an incentive for people to fight. Because versus changing the actual game.
The other thing I was thinking about is, like, do you remember the Blitz mode back in, like, I don't even know if they had it this chapter.
They had it recently, yeah.
Yeah, they did. Something where, like, the zone just moves faster in zone 1, so you're kind of rushing to get towards the middle of the map sooner. I don't know. I mean, or like it makes you want to land in the middle of the map more, so maybe there's a little bit more congestion in the middle of the map to start with. I don't know. It just feels also from a spectator perspective right now, the 10 minutes of early game where people are just hacking at trees seems like, I don't know. I would like to see something change there to make that a little bit more entertaining.
Yeah. One thing I've always fantasized about as like a player is just that, what if all the zones were a little bit faster? I'm not sure by what amount. And then you kind of increased farming. You could increase movement, but I don't know. That would maybe. But having more of an incentive to farm up quicker and get to endgame and have that be the spectacle rather than everything else.
Yeah.
I think I've always loved that idea, because that'd be really cool to make it like, all right, we know what the goal is here. It's endgame. And obviously there is a beauty to playing the game and having that time to loot and rotate. So it would obviously feel weird as a player, maybe not necessarily much as a spectator, because as a spectator early game, as you said, it's really boring. You kind of are just hoping someone fights for the most part. and hoping that they're streaming or something or somebody's watching it. Like that's one of the biggest things about trying to watch an event is sometimes things happen, you never see it. We never see what happens some of these events, and also there's no replays for some, like especially the cash cups. Like we'll never know for some people how they've won these events. And I mean, maybe that's a good thing for people keeping their secrets and actually working hard on that stuff, and they can upload it on their own, right? But the point that I'm saying is that when you're watching professional Fortnite or like those high tier games, sometimes things happen, you just miss them. And so I think it would be cool to have a little bit of a push towards, okay, we're building up towards endgame. I don't know. The one thing that's really easy about like League of Legends per se is that it's a very fluid motion between early game, mid game, end game. And I think that there's just so many people that you can't watch everything, but yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Just one more thought to wrap this up. I guess you could also increase Siphon early, so you get more mats and shield in zone 1 than zone 2. It's a little less. Zone 3, it's a little less, so on and so forth. That would like increase incentive to actually fight early game. So you get 150 of each material off of an elim in zone 1. So that way, if you get elims, that speeds up the process. Then you can upgrade your weapons. You have mats. You have to spend less time farming. You can focus on rotations. Or, I mean, that sounds like an option. I don't think we'll ever see changes like that. But one, like from a spectator point of view, I really don't care that it necessarily has to be live. Like watching the broadcast, we're not going to watch them live. So if we went back to each POI, showed Dooms first, and then watched a fight from the beginning, showed another POI fight off spawn, that can kind of fill that time. So it's not necessarily just dead time where everyone's rotating and smacking stuff with their pickaxe.
Yeah. It's just one of the things that like always, whenever we get to these conversations, since the very beginning, because I'm a pro player and I've always cared about this game. Since the very beginning, I've always had gripes about certain things. But you know what? It always gets me at the very end where I'm like, oh, that would be nice, huh? Ah, too bad it's never gonna happen. Like that's the end. That's the end. It's like, yeah. Oh man, maybe one day Dad will buy me a birthday present. I don't know. But
I mean, like I feel like if Epic gave third-party tournaments more kind of leeway with playing around with those types of settings, it could potentially lead to them actually introducing it in like a bigger tournament, right? Because for something like, I mean, we're going to talk about this later in the podcast, but like Ninja Battles had fewer players in the lobby to start out with, and
that was awesome.
You had a ton of people on Twitter saying that they liked it a lot. I don't know that it's gonna turn into that in the near future for FNCS or anything, but like it at least like makes it more than just us like talking about it hypothetically. Like we actually get to see it in action, and people could talk about whether they like it or not, and like maybe eventually Epic picks up on that, right? I don't know.
Yeah, we hope.
Well, I mean, that's a perfect segue here. Like, why don't we just jump right in? Should lobbies be less than 100 or 99 people, right? We saw Ninja Battles, and there were varying perspectives, right? People loved it in certain pieces. That early to mid game was not as laggy as it normally is, but come the end of the game, you're still getting the same number of players in the lobby that would normally be there if there was 100 players in the lobby, and then the lag still was a problem. So it didn't necessarily get rid of issues towards endgame. It just didn't have the same lag in early to mid game. So at a point it's better, but at the same time, the most important point of the game still face the same issues.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there, SamppA?
So DB2 said the one con I can see is that lower player count is less qual spots. So that's probably one of the reasons why we'll never ever see it. Honestly, is just that I think that they want to be able to have more people in it, so it's more fans drawn in from those players who want to watch them play. There's more incentive to watch. So I think we'll never see it happen. But as I actually didn't get to watch Ninja Battles too much, by the way, so I didn't see entirely how it went. but I'm just gonna guess, and you can let me know if this is how it went. So I would assume that the early game was pretty lackluster. Mid game was probably a little suffocating, just like a normal game, because nobody really fought earlier on. And then end game was the same as it normally was, probably.
Yeah, it was essentially no one fought off spawn. There might have
Yeah.
been 1 or 2 spawn fights. Rotations were slightly easier than you would normally
Yeah.
see at the highest level in mid game. And then we would see Storm Surge play more of a factor at points in the game.
Because no one even saw each other. That's right.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
you didn't have those
Yeah.
or off spawn fights, so it was more important to work on your rotation and make sure you're getting the surge, so you weren't dealing with it when it popped up. Yeah. And then end game was the same as it always is.
It's just nice because you lessen the RNG of loot, which is nice. But I think there's probably even more RNG to positioning then, probably. Maybe? I don't know. Not entirely sure. Because, I mean, like, maybe some spots will be open for no reason because somebody didn't land there because there's 80 people, and so a whole POI just didn't get while 50 people go Stark. Obviously not in like a finals situation. I'm talking more about like an opens or a mids.
Right.
But so for finals, I mean, like, we've already seen how it goes, but yeah. I don't know. I think, yeah, 100% chest spawn would be nice. I think that would be my gripe first and foremost before anything else right now is probably 100% chest spawn. Yeah. Because I think that solves all the problems we would have anyway. Like, pretty much. Because the reason why you're seeing everyone kind of scramble for loot is because of the fact there's no loot. Like, they need to claim land so that it's like, okay, we didn't get half the chest in this POI, but if we walk over to this POI or like, like, so for Coal Castle and then Shark, I think it's Animal and 2 other people who are, I think it was Animal and 2 other people who are running it right now, but they said they had the entire thing like untouched or something like that. And I can imagine it's because they needed to, out of necessity, have so much loot with 50% chest spawns that sometimes you loot a entire POI and it's just nothing. So, yeah. That's a little bit of a tangent, but.
We're all about tangents here, don't worry. Jordan, what do you got for us up there?
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
You're good.
What are we talking about?
No, I think it's. We're talking about
we're talking about 100
players and chest spawn, yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think like you're right. Like it kind of works like a funnel. Like no matter how many players start out, you're still gonna wind up with like generally the same number of player as you get closer to the end of the game. We see that even like within a finals round, the first couple of games are gonna be super packed early game. Like nobody's gonna fight off spawn. Everyone just wants to like make it to end game, try to do their best in their first couple games, and then you get towards like 5th or 6th game of a finals round, and people start dying a lot quicker off spawn. So it'll be like within the first couple of minutes, there'll already be like 70 people left, right? So that first storm surge doesn't hit as hard. But then once you get to end game, like they're essentially the same. No matter it's game 1 or game 6 of the finals, they're generally the same because everyone kind of plays like that mid game, end game the same way, very very conservatively up until end game. And so like it's not going to change how the server performs. Like if you start with 80 players versus 100, maybe a little bit in the early game, but that's not really the problem in the first place. But like, yeah, I don't know. I definitely agree. It's better for decreasing the amount of RNG that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, like at that point, if you're worried about RNG, just make it 100% chest spawn.
Yes, please, like, please, dude, please. It is so rough coming into a building, and you're like, all right, I got 4 chests. Oh, didn't get my first one. That's all right. Let's keep going. All right, didn't get my second one. All right, let's keep. And I'm dead. Like, there's no, what I mean? Like, it's but I don't like. I think what really like, because I've gotten to the point now where I'm so veteran to that kind of general BS of something being broken or not entirely competitively sound, to the point where now I'm not even questioning why. Like, I'm not even like thinking like, oh, like when is they gonna come back? I'm thinking like, what is their idea? What are they thinking? What's the goal of having 50%? Seriously, what is it? A storyline? I can't see that. Is it because there's stack loot at Starks, or like are they trying to have people go to Starks because there's no loot anywhere else and there's henchman chests there? I don't know. So that's the one interesting thing is like, where is the idea coming from? And I wonder if it really is just to be like, well, there's 50% chest spawn here, but there's 100% chest spawn in this vault. Come get it. Like, I don't know. Interesting.
I think Bella. Do you know who Bella is? He was on the pod a couple weeks ago and talked about the psychological perspective of it. So not only if you get good loot out of a chest, are you then getting that boost in positivity and you're winning something, right?
Right.
So,
you're getting a purple pump off spawn. Like that's your endorphins.
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Like, yeah.
But now if you reduce the chest, then when you get a chest, that's even more of like a rush. That like, yes, I actually got my chest. He explained it much more
No, that makes sense.
intelligently
It makes
to me,
sense.
but like at a
Yeah.
base, I'm pretty sure that's what he meant.
Yeah.
And it's something you talked about that I believe you said like gambling, like casinos and stuff do those kind of things. And
that's crazy. I didn't think, see, like that's insane. I do remember, like, I don't remember if anyone remembers this, but there was at some point, I thought I saw on Reddit or maybe Twitter, like 2 years ago, year and a half ago, where somebody was talking about how Epic was hiring people to do like what's it called? Well, I don't even know what the term is for it, but like psychological research on how to get their game to be more addicting. Do you guys remember that at all?
Yeah, there was parents that sued Epic because they said Fortnite was more addictive than cocaine.
I mean,
all right, I don't know.
A lot of people play the game, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
What were you gonna say, Jordan?
No, an analogy I was reading a book, an analogy I read about that was like, imagine if you you have a refrigerator and it's good to open it, but you generally know what's in your refrigerator. But now imagine if every time you opened your refrigerator, a new like food appeared or a new snack appeared. Like you want to keep on opening that thing because it's like a new like dopamine rush because you're like wondering what you're gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of the idea behind the random like chest thing. But now now imagine sometimes when you walk downstairs, your refrigerator isn't even there. So it adds like an extra element of it. Like, am I going to get a refrigerator? And if I do, is it going to have ice cream or like I don't know,
pizza?
Pizza in it, or is it going to have like carrots in it or like? But
it's a very good, easy to understand analogy. I like that.
Yeah.
The big thing is it's to put it simply, like the psychology of it is just that when you don't expect anything and you get something, it's just for some reason it's so much more rewarding because your expectations are so low that once you get anything decent, you're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling good right now. Like
got a gray AR.
At least, right? At least.
Yeah. All right. So I didn't think this is where I would wind up, to be honest. Like I was going into this thinking back to the topic. We've kind of
we've circled off a little bit.
Yeah, that happens here.
That's good. That means we talked about something we wanted to. So.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't help to reduce the player count, really.
No. It's a cool idea, though. I mean, like, there is some competitiveness to it, right? Because it is less RNG. Like, because you say, like, no matter what, if we have the RNG or in the non-RNG, when people get to end game, it's the same. So having the early game non-RNG, it's nice. Being able to, like, have a little bit more of because then it becomes more of a game in a sense. You know how like when you play League of Legends, everyone goes to their own lanes and that's just that for the entire thing. Well, imagine that, but except for POIs, right? People go to POIs and they go to endgame. I mean, if POIs were the exact same everywhere else, then I think it would be fine. But obviously with Dooms and Starks, that's not going to happen. So, but yeah. Anyway, little side tangent again. Continue on.
Well, actually, that's kind of what I liked about it. Is you got to see the POIs play out against one another.
Yeah, true.
And almost see the balance of them because it wasn't necessarily like battling at POIs. It was coming together end game and then seeing how the POIs lined up against one another. Mm-hmm. Granted, there's huge fucking differences in the players, and some teams had content creators, and you had like Bucky, Creo, and Kanata on a team of
King everyone. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was my biggest takeaway. Is I like seeing that because you kind of just locked in what you wanted, and then it played from there. But
Yeah.
let's move on
Yeah,
before we
let's do that.
keep going.
Before we keep going, yeah, please.
All right. So I guess this last one is the Snakening V2 happened
For sure. Yeah.
here in NA, and we saw a huge mix up of everyone changing their trio or potentially changing their trio, then going back to what they had, and who fucking knows what's gonna
They
happen
move so much.
tomorrow, or well, I guess Saturday, and who actually people play with, and if they decide to stick with it throughout. But what I think is more helpful is people who can take a step back and not necessarily think of things rationally, right? Is
Yeah.
how do you find a trio, and if it's not working, how do you tell that it's not working? And then how do you go about moving away and stepping back from a trio?
And you're talking just for me, or just talking about like, are you talking about the snaking of all the big other teams like Dubs and them, or
I mean, just from
in general?
general
Yeah,
perspective, not necessarily one team.
for sure.
Just how do you personally evaluate your trios that you're with?
Yeah.
And if it's working, how do you know it's working? If it's not, when is it time for you to say, all right, it's time to find someone else?
So yeah, so if you're going into an event, any event, trio, squads, duos, and you have someone else to rely on, you got to have a little bit of the same level of hunger and expectations. So when you play with them, you're gonna feel the vibes and how you want it to go. And it really comes down to what the end result is. If you guys think that there's going to be, like, there's one thing where a lot of people get stuck on, this person has better placements, but are they going to take you farther? Like, is there growth there, right? So, thinking about that when you talk to someone, their mindset, how they approach the game, so whether or not they're open to admitting their mistakes, whether or not they're open to other ideas, so that maybe they can possibly change up the drop spot mid tourney. Not necessarily like that, but you get the idea. So,
Right.
evaluating your teammates as much as you possibly can and seeing if you enjoy playing with them, if you think they're on the same page as you as far as like what your goals are, and how they focus. I mean, like, if you can play with someone who you have fun with, who you work hard with, and are able to push each other to see results, then that's perfect. And that's the end result. That's the goal. I mean, I should say end goal for most people, obviously. But the one thing is when it comes down to teams, it does come down to the different persons. So if you play with someone and it feels like you guys just are not on the same page, or things are a little scrambled, or it feels like this or that's missing, it happens. I mean, there's 3 different roles in a team, and some people say like you should treat the roles in certain ways, blah 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 blah. But for the most part, people align themselves with certain actions in game. Some people tarp, some people try to remind everyone else to rotate, and then what ends up happening is at the end, hopefully, you have all 3 people bringing together a cohesive team. And so, oh man, I lost my train of thought. So give me 1 second on this one. And so with that, it takes time to work together, grow, and if you feel like you're not growing towards that space, then maybe it's time to look for something else, I would say. And as far as finding a new team goes, you just got to try people out. Message everyone you can. Don't have an ego too much. I mean, for the most part, it's a business too. So if you think that you're not going to do well with someone, and I mean, also if you meet with someone and you don't have credentials that they're looking for, and they tell you no, don't get too weird about it. Like, I mean, people choose teams all the time, and you just got to respect their decision on that. It's kind of heartless in a sense, because you can make good friends and then never talk to them again because of whenever you just stop playing with them, right? And it doesn't mean you're not friends with them still, but it can be one of those things where it's like, all right, well, we're kind of not playing together anymore, so, but you're still kind of friends. So across the board, I would say try people out, be open, but also have a goal and work with your teammates and be honest with each other and yourselves, so that you guys can make the best choices. If that makes sense. Long story, long, what's it called? But yeah.
That's what we asked for, man. Jordan, what would you do? I know you're not balls deep in the competitive playing side, but you looking for a trio? What's going through your mind? What matters?
What matters? Probably play styles working together. But I mean, now that I say that, like, there's a lot. I don't know. Sometimes it just takes time for that to work, right? Your play style, while every player is like different than the next, every player is unique. your play style could definitely change over time, and it could
Yeah.
it's a great thing to grow your play style around what your teammate does, right?
Hmm.
And that sometimes just takes time playing, like learning what the other what your teammates do and stuff like that. And it kind of makes me wish that there was a little bit more structure to competitive Fortnite, because the way that it is now, both the amount, like both like how little time there is between tournaments. So people are kind of like rushing to find teammates.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and also just the fact that there's no like rules against switching teammates. It just feels like everybody jumps ship quicker than they should. They're like not really giving enough time to seeing if potentially the team would work over time. Um, and I mean, like, it makes sense with the way that Fortnite is structured, but I kind of wish that there was a little bit more structure so that wouldn't happen as often. Um, yeah, like also the other thing that plays into that is like orgs and teams don't have control over who their players play with. So it's not like you have a general manager who's telling you to play with
Yeah.
these two other players, and you're set with those two guys for the season. You got to make it work. It's no, you're just kind of on your own, and sometimes you're going to get dumped off by your teammates. Sometimes you decide that you want to leave because it's not working out right away, and I don't know. I would like to see some players try to build chemistry over time, because I think those are always the teams that wind up performing the best, or more interesting to watch.
Yeah. Because they create a story too
Yeah, for sure.
of their growth. I remember when Tabs, G, Cadron, and I don't remember who the third was, but when they first came in the scene, I remember watching them and being like, I didn't know who they were before as much, but when they came in the scene, like it was nice to like. That's how they grew, was seeing them play together the entire FNCS, and then I think they played the next like squads of the fourth, so they stayed together and they created that growth. And look at them now. I'm pretty sure all of them are good players, or at least very hungry players who are still coming up. So that's just one thought. And I mean, yeah, with the organization, I would love for like to be a solo queue or something, like a dynamic queue where you could queue up and find a teammate. Like I feel like it'd be
Yeah.
easier for people to play tournaments if they could just give us arena fill or something. I don't know, you know?
Yeah,
Like
100%.
yeah.
You're
So I feel
really
like
kind
yeah, go
yeah.
ahead. You take it. You take it. You got it. You got
Okay.
it. Yeah, you
But
got
like
it.
they're really kind of hindering the growth, because you can't find a teammate within the game.
Yeah, it's
It
kind
is
of ridiculous,
almost
actually.
impossible to find a teammate within the game of Fortnite. And yeah, they have their own Discord, but if you look on the looking for a group or looking for team on the actual Fortnite Discord, that thing just flies,
Yeah,
and it's not necessarily where
Helpful
you
at
want
all.
to. Yeah,
Not helpful at all. There's people impersonating other people to get people to join and play with them. I have people who like, some people don't understand necessarily different like tiers and levels. Where maybe I'll post online and I'll be like, I'm looking for a teammate. I'll get messages from people who don't play the game every day, let alone have any earnings, right? So it's like there are people who, as much as you want to grow and you will talk to someone directly and say, hey, I want to grow as well, they will tell you directly, not necessarily like all the time, but some people will be like, oh yeah, I'm all about it. But then once you get there, it's not the same. So it's so weird to try to meet people that way versus I think being able to just jump into a game. But I mean, the only thing that would be different would be that like, would you then play with people near your points? Or is it going to be completely random where I'm playing with a guy who just started Arena yesterday? Like the SBMM kind of thing is weird about that. So, maybe, I mean, it still would be better than nothing. But yeah, it would be nice to have a rank system where it was a little bit more categorized of like, okay, well, I'm this MMR. What's your MMR? Oh, you're that MMR? We're kind of close. Let's see how this works. You know, like
yeah,
versus I've got 3K earnings and 3K earnings is or like half of it is from Winter Royale or something ridiculous like or like somebody's only made earnings on Wild Wednesdays, right? I don't think that's necessarily happened. There might be some new earnings actually from Wild
there
Wednesday, but
probably
like
is somebody
yeah,
who only has Wild Wednesday
but like
earnings.
you have like 2K from Wild Wednesdays randomly, and you're like, oh, you have 2K, awesome, let's play, and you play, and you're like, this isn't. How did you get 2,000? Like, what happened? You know what I'm saying? So it's so unorganized. It's the least organized outside of the ones we don't know of, right? Like least organized pro scene that I know of. I mean,
yeah. It's mind blowing to me that there's no teammate finder or like matchmaking tool
Isn't there a website
within,
or no?
well, like within the game, I mean.
Yeah, okay,
Because
fair. Yeah.
like we've established that Epic's philosophy is to try to make it try to make the game
Tangible. Yeah.
playable for
Yeah.
everybody who wants to play. And I feel like that's such a huge barrier for someone that's trying to get into competitive, right? Like for even like us, like even though Taylor and I aren't necessarily like pro players or whatever, you know, we're within the Twitter community and we could contact people through that, and so like there's ways for us to find players if we really wanted
Mm-hmm.
to. But for someone who's not in that at all yet, I feel like it's such a big barrier for them to find teammates at their like skill level. It's just weird to me that Epic, of all companies with their philosophy, wouldn't have something like that in game.
Yeah, I agree. There is a website. I believe I saw some people throwing like hashtag ads up. It's like Sweaty GG. Sweaty, if you're listening, yes, we are open towards advertisements. Hit us up. But maybe that'll be a consistent place where people can be looking for teammates. But going back to the original question, I think the biggest thing is you have to be honest with yourself. And I think a lot of these players, because they're younger and don't necessarily have that life experience, aren't honest with themselves, right? They see
Yeah.
themselves as cracked in the game. They won or placed top whatever in a tournament. They have some kind of earnings. They think that they're one of the top tier players because they've done it once or twice. And not even necessarily just placements. Being honest with yourself has to come from, you know, how much time am I willing to spend? How much do I want to put into the game? When can I actually play? And what are my goals? You know, take a step back before you even look for a teammate. Think about yourself and figure out what the fuck's going on, because then you'll actually be able to find teammates. And if you throw that out there to someone and they're like, oh, this doesn't work, then okay, cool. Like you didn't waste your time just basing it on placements or PR, because that means diddly. At the end
For
of
the
the
most
day,
part, yeah.
PR and placements mean nothing in this game at this point. Like it kind of creates tiers, because obviously if you have no earnings, you're not playing with someone with like $40,000 earned.
Or you haven't
right?
proved yourself yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I see it. Is just you got to figure yourself out before you go find teammates. And then if you're gonna try and leave a teammate, just be honest with them, man. And don't leave don't leave a trio if you don't have a trio, especially like a couple days before FNCS, right? Like if today you're thinking, screw these kids, they're no good. All right, who else are you gonna play with come Saturday? Tell me who your trio is on Saturday
Right.
that you're leaving them for.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, just listening to you talk when you start going ranting on about the time commitments and stuff like that, I mean, you gave me anxiety just thinking about it. So like, that's a process that really is one of those things where, like I was saying earlier, you got to be on the same page as your teammates. You got to have like the same kind of end goal, same motivation. Otherwise, when it comes to it, when it's like, okay, let's play some more games, and someone's like, I want to go watch the show. It's like, well, that's not gonna help us win. So, or like, I gotta do this homework. I'm like, you know, like I understand that you got to do your other stuff, but I think that's important. Like you're saying, be upfront so that's clear and you have direct guidelines or lines in the sand where it's like, okay, we'll play here, 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 and we'll practice as much as we can. But obviously, you got stuff to do, so do what you got to do, but make sure you bring it all to the court, so to say.
I would love to see a coach who builds like a team, like builds team like from scratch, right? Like I know everybody likes to play with who they like to play with, but it would be cool to me to see a coach who hand selects certain players that he wants to build a trio out of or build a team out of, and you know, foster like an environment with those people, like build up, you know, the team morale or whatever,
Mhm.
outside of just like helping someone improve. Because like right now, Fortnite coaches help you improve on whether it's mechanics, you know, game sense, whatever it is. But I feel like there aren't many coaches who coach a team and like try to, you know, be a traditional coach in that sense.
Yeah,
It'd be cool to be, especially because like you guys just said, there's a big problem with people overestimating themselves in a lot of different ways. But if you have like a third party, if you have a third party coach who is assessing you and like knows how much time you're going to put in, knows your skill level, knows like what role you could play within a team, I think that'd be really cool for somebody to like take that role as a coach.
I think when I hear that as a coach, I feel like the very first thing, and obviously like maybe this is a little toxic, but I feel like coaches don't get paid enough for that.
That's exactly what I would have said. Like, invest the fucking money if you want that, and no one will.
Well, I mean, like
Yeah.
in that scenario, like I feel like it's like more the coach reaching out to the players. So
Yeah.
you could be like, "Hey, I'm going to build
a dream team.
sick trio, and I'm
Yeah.
going to take this percentage of your earnings." Like, if you
That'd be
if
cool.
you want to
I think that'd be
join
nice,
up,
yeah.
it's going to be a sick team.
Yeah.
But
I think that there's more of that opportunity within an org for sure.
yeah, 100%.
Where you actually can work with it directly with a player. I think that's the other thing too is when I say like, oh, coaches aren't paid enough, it's not so much that like it's not possible or anything like that, or that I like. It's one of those things where it comes down to not even just the players. You're getting into like messy stuff. You're getting into how they feel when they play on that day. You get into how they feel about a certain person. Some people don't play with each other just because of something that happened, blah blah blah, here and there, right? Like, so that's what I mean when I say like you wouldn't get paid enough. It's just like that becomes into almost social work in a way, like literally. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be that serious, but you can kind of get what I'm saying when I say that.
Yeah, and like that is a role that a coach plays in like a traditional sports team.
True. Yes. Yeah. And it's a little bit easier because you actually have like this, like what was the name for SKT? I want to. It's not Kokona. Is it Kokona? Anyway, the guy's name who was the T1 coach when they won like 3 worlds, not 3, I think it was like 2, and they like got to worlds multiple times and barely made it, or barely missed it by 1 year. Anyway, Coach Faker, and just that would be really cool. That like sort of, so when you think of it purely like as in a other Kokoma, yeah, okay, there we go. I think, yeah. But if you think it purely as a team, as like a structured sport in that sense, yeah. But when you start saying that and I think of Fortnite, it's different. It's different, you know?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like it's so much different. It's just people
Fortnite.
are different. People egos, like people have bigger streams than someone else, so they're like, oh, I don't want to play with that guy. He's, you know, like maybe nothing happened like that, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's weird sometimes. It's just different. So
Yeah. Cool. Anyone got anything else on our 3 topics before we grab some questions here from chat?
I think we're vibing. I'm vibing anyway.
Yeah.
Fine.
Chilling. All
Cool.
right. I'll start us off here, Jordan. Bump in if you want to ask a question that you see. SamppA's, same for you.
Sure.
Reese threw us a bunch of questions. I think we kind of already talked that lower player counts wouldn't work in finals, so let's not talk about if they would work in opens or semis, because I don't think that's any better unless you guys feel differently.
I would just say it's not that it wouldn't work. I just don't know if it would really fix anything per se. But it could be better. I mean, it's one of those things where when you do have an incremental amount of difference, it could add up over time when you keep doing incremental. So that might help. But one of the things that is like that kills me on that argument is like just thinking that, you know, I don't think Epic will change that just because they like having as many people in there as they possibly can so that your favorite player can be in there and you want to watch him for that. You know, I think that's just never going to change. They want as many people as they possibly can.
All right, cool.
I could be wrong on that though.
Let's pick one team that is not, you know, a traditional top team that you think is going to do well. I don't care what region.
Mhm.
And then pick a top team that you don't think is going to do well. Again, don't care the region.
Yeah. You guys can go first. If you have any on your mind, because
Wait, ask
I have
the
none.
question again.
So a team that you think will do well, like an underdog, pick an underdog, and then pick someone who you think is going to underperform is the 2 questions Reese gave us. So I'm throwing them into one, so you get to pick 2 teams at once.
Taylor, you could start.
All right, cool. I mean, do Miro, Day, and Reverse count as an underdog? Like, I don't necessarily.
For me personally, no, but I think for the average Fortnite viewer, yeah, probably. They don't know. They're not World Cup winners, you know. So
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a cop out though, even from my end to pick them.
because they're probably going to do well, from what it seems.
Well, they've been doing well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard.
It's all about consistency though, because
Yeah.
a lot of people can pop off and then fall off again. So we'll have to see how they do. It seems like they're going to keep going up though. But yeah, I guess if I was to say like any teams that I'm looking at for underperforming or overperforming per se, um, I think the teams, and this is obviously not a direct answer to the question, but the teams that we see that are working from like 3-4 months ago till now, I think we're gonna see like are gonna be very consistent. So for example, like Hapt and Stacky, I don't know who their third was before they dropped him or moved him, or I'm not sure what they did with that, but I know of Hapt and Stacky, and they've been going to Steamy Stacks for a long time, and that's someone who I would look out for to pop off possibly because they've been landing there for literally like I think the entire chapter 2, maybe I don't even know. But point is that they've been working on it, and I think that would be someone to look for. Hart as well. I talked about him earlier in the podcast. They stand out to me because like at some point they stood out, and then I followed them, and so I see them in like my Twitter feed. So there are other players who are going to definitely rise to the occasion, but those are the two I think of right now.
All right. Oh, Taken. It was Hart, Durant, and Taken. I don't know if they're still playing together.
Yeah, they probably are.
All right. So the TNA, I guess since they're now all on TNA, that's like my obvious one, but as we talked about, it doesn't count. I don't know if Divine, XMB, and Foppy are still playing together, but
They're interesting.
Yeah, I do think they'll do well because Divine is someone who rose over the past couple of seasons.
Yeah.
Same with Foppy. I mean, XMB's kind of been there, and people have kind of put XMB down as he wears the taco skin and kind of trolls, but that team has performed very well together, and I think they'll do well come tournament time on a consistent basis. And I don't know who to like. I don't want to put.
You don't necessarily have to answer the question too. Like,
no. Yeah.
Could be something. We could go to something maybe a little bit different if you're really stuck on it. But.
Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
It's hard. There's so many people, man. There's so many. There's a lot. That's one of the biggest things and most amazing things about Fortnite is it is a huge community, and you do end up getting kind of a melting pot of sorts. So I do enjoy that. It's actually very cool. If you go to the I remember going to DreamHack, and I remember meeting a lot of people who maybe for example, you know who Fuzzy is? Secret Fuzzy?
Yep.
A lot of people think he's very toxic. And he has been toxic. He trash talks a lot. And I didn't know much about him before, but I just heard like, oh, he's toxic, right? And then I went and met him, and he was just the exact opposite. Like he's just a fun-loving person, right? Like, and it's one of those things where when you're online, it's a lot harder to really recognize that people are, can be cool, right? Despite the fact that they're competitive players and aggressive, even maybe fighting for a drop spot with you, right? So that's one thing I do like, and I hope that we can get back to that eventually, is being able to get the community together in that sense, because I do enjoy that. That's awesome.
All right, cool. Got another question. So I guess this goes back to the build a team conversation. If you were a coach, choose your team. And then there's some aspects like team chemistry, raw talent,
you read
speed,
that wrong.
accuracy.
If you were a coach, how would you choose your team?
Well, choose your
sort
team.
of, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
Like I'm gonna go with actual players instead of. Sorry if I'm circumventing your question, but I feel like this is more realistic. If I had to build the perfect team, you almost have to just pick Zay and Saf by default. Like if you don't choose those two, those two have the best synergy of maybe Dubs and Mega are the only two that could, combat them as far as synergy and chemistry as a duo. But I would pick Zayt as an IGL over Dubs or Mega. I don't even know who would IGL that. And if I had to throw a third on there, I'm throwing Booga. Just because if you get to put Booga in a back seat and not necessarily have to think about the game and kind of talk through everything and just let him absolutely frag because we know he can just frag out.
Yeah,
and
he can. Yeah, he definitely can.
That would be incredible to me. That's my trio.
Pretty good. I think they tried that once, didn't they?
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me.
I swear after World Cup, I swear they tried. Maybe it was just squads that they tried or something. But I swear there was a point in time where it was Zayt, Saf, and Booga. I know they did try with squads. It was Zayt, Saf, Booga, Stretch, and they ended up dropping Booga at some point. So I think what it was is that I think Booga, and this is when I come down to the whole synergy thing, is I think Booga and Zayt have like very similar roles to the point where maybe they disagreed on something or they just felt like he needed to bring something else that he didn't maybe.
Well,
But that, I think, go ahead.
It's hard for a player like Booga to take a back seat.
Yeah.
Like as someone as successful and knowledgeable as he is, it's probably very hard for him just to take a back seat to Zayt and let him make decisions.
Mhm.
Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, you know, because you want a hunger and like you want that fire inside of you. But if you could just let Booga fucking not have to worry about the game and just frag out, that would. All right, I'm done.
Yeah, probably Exerty. 100%. I could say that. Well, I don't know entirely what happened. That definitely was part of it, though. They were definitely beefing about him streaming. But either way, I remember there was some beef where somebody said somebody was a problem. So.
All right. Anyone else got a trio you want to build?
I'll go to the original question. Like, how would you? Because this kind of ties into Jordan's question too earlier. So I guess we could a little bit tie it in. If you were a coach, how would you choose your team chemistry? Right, you read that. So I mean, the biggest thing I think would just be trying to find a way to find people who like fit like a puzzle in a sense. And that sounds like little straightforward in that sense. It doesn't give it much depth, but just if there's someone who has a knack for leading, and then they work well with maybe someone else they know who is a good fighter. I think above all else, despite like thinking about the idea of like trying to put a team together, as far as like if I was a coach trying to coach a team, I'll try to find people who are hungry. Like that's the biggest thing. I think that always above everything else, hunger. Because like if you aren't like super excited or very hungry or motivated, there's not much else. There's the ceiling is really low. That's for sure. You know, you got to push past it, and that's the hunger and the growth. And so that's what I'd be looking for as a coach.
Jordan?
I guess like if I'm going to take from one of the things that he listed, if I was the coach, I'd probably try to get the most amount of raw talent, and then as a coach, focus on trying to build team chemistry. I think like raw talent makes up for a lot of mistakes, even if players aren't necessarily working that well together. Like raw talent could prevail a lot of times, especially in a game like Fortnite that's so mechanically intensive.
Like clicks.
Yeah. And that's not to say like team chemistry doesn't work. Like I think a team that has a lot of team chemistry could match up against a team with just raw talent, but it's probably easier to build team chemistry than it is to build raw talent.
Raw talent that's hungry and willing to listen, for sure.
Yeah,
100%.
Definitely.
Because you have a lot of people who are really good and they just aren't willing to listen because they're like, oh, I'm good. I don't need you.
Yeah.
There's a weird, just dumb phenomenon. I don't know when this started, but at some point somebody said, I think it was clicks, and then I think he changed his mind later. But basically saying that like, oh, what are coaches for? And then like I've also heard people like say that Stretch says there's no point for coaches, but then also I've heard him say like to tell people to get a coach. So it's weird. It bounces between everything, but for the most part, there's this idea that coaches don't work, and that and there's this kind of sense of like, well, you kind of got to figure it out on your own. And once you figure it out on your own, for most people, sometimes they just don't want to change too. So like I see it this way, and that's how it works for me. I'm not gonna change it because if I change it, I might not work, in the same way I did before.
Yeah, 100%. Like raw, if you can get a group of 3 guys who have raw talent but not huge egos, that's massive, because once you have people bring their egos into things, it makes it impossible to fit people around each other.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. We have a little bit more time, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you, Chief.
Yeah.
You're the one that
fair
probably
enough.
has to
Yeah,
make
fair
this
enough.
scrimmage.
Yeah. I think I have probably like 10 more minutes. So I was gonna say, like, if anybody's in the chat chilling right now and they have any other questions, I think we could probably like spit out a couple more right now. If you guys have any more, I think we missed a few earlier because people are asking here and there. So let me go up real quick and just see if I can find one. There was somebody who asked.
I know somebody asked if you playing League helped you like
Oh
get the
yeah,
mechanics
they
of
were
transfer
trolling.
over.
They were trolling. That's a cute
Uh,
question. Yeah. Does like mechanics from Link help into Fortnite for sure? Because I had to like press a ton of buttons all at the same time. The one thing, okay, so this is pretty interesting, and I know that some people might actually find this weird. When you put your hand on your keyboard, right, and you rest it, where do you put your fingers? Because you know where I put mine? I put my pinky on A.
the hell?
Yeah, I put my pinky on A because of League of Legends. Because the Q was the one button you had to press, so I had pinky on Q, WER, and then my thumb was out for space. But now my pinky A, my ring finger W, and my middle finger D, and that way I can press every one of those buttons at the same time while I'm building and editing. So.
Okay, it's interesting.
But yeah, what will you be doing, spending your time over FNCS doing, playing coaching, and what would you ideally be doing? Well, theoretically, I was hoping to really make a genuine big championship run because last year I was so close. I literally made it to every finals except for like two, and most of the time, and I don't mean to be like self-centered or anything, but at the time of that team, it was definitely me dragging them into the space a little bit. And again, not to be egotistical, but that's how it was at the time. And so remembering back and thinking like, man, trio FNCS, if I could get someone who's on my level and with like, everything, right, we could definitely like fly. So that's the biggest thing for me is like being an IGL, and that stands out for me as a player and playing. So I love trio FNCS. So it's a little unfortunate that I got snaked when I did. And I don't care about switching teams too much. So it's not a big deal to look for a new teammate. People find new teammates all the time. That's not a big deal. I think what really frustrated me about the whole entire scenario was that I came back from a trip and we had been working for months before, and it was kind of like this whole like, okay, we're gonna do this together. And then the week before, the day, like literally hours before the Cash Cup tournament, I was told that I was like not on the team anymore. So it was like I now have 2 days of already tournaments. So there's no ladders running. There's nowhere to practice, and I have to find a team. So as far as FNCS goes, I was hoping to go really high, but now at this point, I'm going to do the very best I can, regardless, because I have I'm a hungry competitor. So it's one of those things where now it's like, oh, okay, all right, I'm still gonna I'm gonna do as best as I can, even though I kind of have like, but now I have like a reason to like, okay, I need to prove somebody to something, something to someone, right? But otherwise, I mean, I'm gonna be doing my regular weekly coachings with pro guides. I think we'll see how FNCS goes, really, for me. Because if it goes really well, I'll put more time into that. If it doesn't, I actually may just step down and move into coaching, just because I'm so old, man. I've been in the scene for so long, and the whole like snaking and like new teams and this guy's better and that guy's better and blah 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 this and that, like it's getting old, man.
Yeah,
I want to
100%
compete,
agree.
but it's like, dude, oh man, nobody thinks like young kids don't have an idea of like what it really takes to set that stuff up, and they do to a degree, right? But they don't necessarily realize like how much work it can take to like jump from team to team to team. Like I'm sure they do to some degree, but you get what I'm saying. The kids don't really care what ends up happening to you. They don't, and I mean to some degree they shouldn't. They should work on themselves. But it's so what's it called? It's just bouncy ball. Like you're going everywhere, So. Who was the trio that I was working with? I was with Z, John, and Q.
So for me, Mr. Resub, probably just going to be doing viewing parties, trying to cast some events and put out that content. I'm not going to be able to do it like I was the past few months, but I'm getting better. Got a little Fortnite comp retweet.
Why is that, by the way?
Kind of nice. Huh?
That's dope, too.
Yeah.
But why are you stepping back a little bit?
So I started a job a couple weeks ago, so I just don't simply have the amount of free time that I used to. And I was coaching in solos, and it was going pretty well. But honestly, like you said, it's not really worth it. Like, I guess you said there's not a lot of money in it, or there's no money. And for me,
it's not worth the pay sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you really gotta, because sometimes you go into them and it's battles uphill the entire time. You have to convince them that you're right. And it's like, well, I get a little bit lucky with that because I have earnings and I have like a foundation a little bit where they're like, oh, well, I can see that has worked for you. So I guess I'll trust you. But as like a coach coming in, and especially when we talked about how Fortnite players don't really respect coaches. A coach doesn't have to be a past pro player. A coach is just somebody who understands it. They don't have to be good at it. I think it does help to some degree, sure, but I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't really understand. So,
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah.
And what else was I gonna say?
FNCS
know.
watching party, videos, VOD
Oh yeah,
reviews,
content.
content.
But for me, I enjoy the content over the coaching. Like I just much rather would be streaming or working on a video than coaching somebody, even if I'm being successful, because I see that as more of a long-term prosperous opportunity. Like the content has a long-term future, whereas coaching I don't necessarily believe is going to have a long-term future. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
As long as you're enjoying your time, because I mean, the one thing as far as like one of the reasons why I got into coaching, originally when I was playing League was because I didn't have enough money. Like literally, I just didn't make enough money to pay for my rent, so I needed to do something, and that's what I picked up on. But as far as like the one thing I really love about it is truly helping people, like seeing them grow. So, it's not that like it's a bad thing that you don't necessarily appreciate, because it's uphill battle, like I said. So what I'm saying is it's good that you're focusing on what you enjoy versus forcing yourself to do something else that you don't.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily I don't enjoy coaching, like
As much.
yeah, it's just I only have so much free time in my day now, and I'd rather work on one or the other.
That's the other thing that kids don't understand. Free time. They literally do not understand the concept of free time. Like, it's insane. Because you know how many kids I've asked, like I talk to them like, so how's your week been? I'm like, well, I eat cereal at 7:30, and then I go to class for 2.5 hours online though, and then I play all day. Yeah, like they have so much more freedom. Is what I'm saying. It's like they don't really understand that when you're like, okay, I'm gonna get on at this time, and then they're like, oh, I took a nap, man. Sorry. Like, no, you can't do that. Or like it's not gonna go well anyway.
Yeah, my free time is set literally every day, and if I can't work it in there, then I'm shit out of luck.
Yeah.
Arcane just said, what you forget about Fortnite coaching is that literally 12-year-olds sit and spam your Discord hundreds of times a day.
Yeah, they'll get one. That's one of the worst things. I honestly, personally, don't know how to deal with it. But when someone gets one coaching from you and then they utilize your coaching for the rest of their life, even though they never paid you an extra dollar, and I'm not like trying to like be like, all right, man, here's a tip for $5. Like I'm not really trying to money pinch them or anything. But it's like, dude, I helped you. Please go do the work and then come back to me. Don't just come back to me like the next like 5 minutes after you've gotten the coaching, and then the next 20 minutes you got like it's like. It's a little bit disrespectful, and I don't think they understand it. So it's one of those things where you got to handle it kindly, because they're kids. They don't understand. They genuinely don't. But I'm not an open book. I'm not Google. You can't type into my Discord. I'll just bam. Here's your answer. You're now a World Cup winner. Like, it's not how it works. Please. So.
Yeah, feel that. Random DMs. Jordan, what are you doing during this FNCS, Chief?
I don't know. I've taken a little bit of a step back from the amount of content that I used to post. I used to try to post like every single day. Yeah, I've reassessed that. I don't have as much time now. I've reassessed that. Gonna post when I have a project that I actually enjoy doing. It'll probably be higher quality content because of that, because I'll just like enjoy it. I'll spend more time on it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a schedule for FNCS, but
What are you looking forward to?
With FNCS,
Anything about that? Yeah.
I don't know.
Like anything you like? Are you looking towards a certain team? Like, are you looking towards Team Seth, like more Bizzle, like Beef? I mean, obviously they're done, right? Because I think they're not landing anymore. But like, is there anything that like is the Beef? Is it the amazing plays? Is the like the end games, the outcome? Like, what are you looking forward to?
I mean, I generally don't focus specifically on specific players. I guess at least going in. Once like somebody performs really well, I do like to look back and see what they did right, what they did wrong, maybe. I don't know. I generally go into FNCS with an open mind. I don't know.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Anything could happen because we might see somebody win that we've not been talking about.
I hope so. And then I hope we don't get the immediate accusations of cheating. But yeah,
It seems like that's gone away for the most
that's
part.
because we haven't had an FNCS, buddy. It's coming.
True. Are you talking
Like-
about like the random like user blah 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 blah? Or are you talking about like somebody hidden cheating? Or
I'm
both?
talking about somebody who isn't a well-known player in the community gets some sort of success, and then
yeah.
everyone immediately blames
Yeah.
some outside
Yeah.
thing that is not the actual person. For
It's
doing
almost like a
well.
rite of passage now for Fortnite.
Yeah, it is. It's literally you
For
start
dubs.
doing well, you get a controller. It's only the controller. Dude, it's because they
Yeah.
landed this spot. Oh, they have aimbot. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, with it being an unorganized scene, people really do like end up, especially with younger adults, like they'll do anything to make themselves avoid the truth sometimes. But it's also like hard sometimes when you're a player. You play the game so often, and the scenarios go a certain way every time, maybe, right? And then you play the game once, and somebody just triple dinks. You're like, what just happened? I'm dead. Like, and the game's over. So there is frustration with that. So I can understand to some degree that there isn't just like a off button on trying to accuse people. Sometimes it's like, dang, that was so good. Was that legit? Like, and I think it would be less of a that person's cheating or that person's on control. And the controller thing, that's just a troll. I mean, but like, also at the same time, people really do think that controller is like the only thing. But anyway, what I'm saying is, I don't remember what I'm saying. I'm on a tangent now.
Cool.
I think I said enough, so I'm gonna hand it off. I'm gonna hand it off.
Let's wrap this up. I had a good time. Let's end this before we get into something we probably shouldn't talk about.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming on, Sam.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It was fun. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Am I just leaving right now, or are you guys gonna end the stream and I'm staying here?
Hang out for a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Jordan,
I'll chill.
take us away.
Yep.
Yeah, SamppA, thank you again for joining. Appreciate it. It was a good time, good conversation. Follow SamppA on Twitter. His handle is right below his screen, somewhere over there.
All the same.
SamppA, anything else you want to plug?
I mean, it's all SamppA, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. If you guys ever want to get coaching from me, I'm on ProGuides. So, they do weekly classes. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday is when I teach my public classes. Some of them are public, some of them are private. Based on the website, I don't choose. And so if you guys ever want to catch me out on there, you can. If you want to get coaching from me, you can always DM me as well. So that's it.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate everybody for tuning in. See you.